Imagine waking up 1 week from today and barely recognizing the life you were living just days ago. That is the power of breaking routine and daring to do what most people avoid. I won't sugarcoat it. Real transformation is uncomfortable. I stumbled, I resisted, I wanted to quit. And that resistance was the proof that something real was happening. These habits didn't change me because they were easy. They changed me because they forced me to confront who I was and who I had been avoiding becoming. These are not hacks, shortcuts, or motivational ideas meant to fade by next Monday. They are raw, sometimes messy, always practical shifts that dragged my mornings out of chaos and into clarity. They pulled me out of mental ruts and rebuilt discipline at a gut level, not as a concept, but as a lived experience. If you want sharper focus, real productivity, or proof that reinvention is possible without waiting for a perfect moment, these habits form a blueprint you can test immediately. Stay with me. I won't give you polished success stories. I'll give you the real ones. The slips, the resistance, the moments where quitting felt easier, and the breakthroughs that only came after staying. Don't just listen, act. Each habit is a tool you can apply today and feel the shift within a week, not someday in theory, but this week in your real life. Welcome to Stoic Philosophy Daily, where your story matters. Share your experience or your biggest emotional trigger below. Every comment is a gift. Here, your voice matters. We read with care, answer with heart, and treat your journey as part of our own. This is more than a channel. It's a circle of strength. If you're ready, drop a comment now. My transformation starts this week. Let's begin. 1. Rise early, take command. Getting up before the noise begins is the first real win of the day. It's a moment of calm before the world gets messy, before demands, messages, and expectations rush in. For most of my life, I treated the morning like an enemy. My bed was my comfort zone, the snooze button my accomplice, and every sunrise felt like a personal attack. Dragging myself out of bed felt like pulling my mind through mud. But that resistance was the doorway. When I finally forced myself up before dawn, everything didn't magically feel easy. The first mornings were rough, groggy steps, a heavy head, the instinct to crawl back under the blanket. But by pushing through the discomfort, something subtle began to change. After just a few days, I started to feel the stillness of the world before it wakes. The silence no longer felt empty. It felt like a clean slate, a piece of time no one could interrupt or take from me. Those extra minutes became a quiet sanctuary, the slow stretching, the short jog. And these still moments with coffee didn't just wake my body, they untangled the noise in my mind. I stopped starting my days in reaction and began starting them with intention. The benefits crept in quietly: less stress, sharper focus, more emotional control, and a calm confidence that came from winning the first battle of the day. Even meditation felt different. My thoughts weren't racing, I wasn't rushing. For the first time in years, my mind felt like it belonged to me again. I'll never forget the morning I watched the sunrise from my balcony. The sky is changing colors. The world is slowly opening its eyes. It hit me that I had been sleeping through moments like this for years. That simple scene carried more power than any motivational speech. It showed me that rising early isn't about squeezing more hours from life. It's about reclaiming calm, clarity, and gratitude you've been too busy to notice. Try this. For 1 week, wake up just 15 minutes earlier than usual. Expect resistance. Don't fight it. Study it. Turn it into curiosity. Ask yourself, what part of my life have I been rushing past that deserves a moment of presence? Use that quiet to stretch, reflect, or breathe before the world intrudes. You'll notice the shift. Your mindset is steadier, your mood is lighter, your mornings are less frantic. ownership replaces anxiety, and the day finally begins on your terms, not by accident. At Stoic Daily, we believe your mornings shape your mind. Drop "I take command of my day" in the comments. What will you do with your extra morning time this week? 2. Move every day, change your mindset. For years, daily exercise was my most broken promise. I hid behind every excuse. I was too tired, too busy. Tomorrow would be better. Moving my body was always something I avoided, convincing myself it wasn't urgent, that missing one day wouldn't matter. However, over time, those skipped days accumulated. Restless nights increased. I felt trapped in my own body, disconnected, heavy, and frustrated. Eventually, I hit a wall, and that wall forced a decision. I drew a line. For 1 week, regardless of circumstances, I would move my body every single day. That commitment was uncomfortable from the start. The first workouts felt like punishment, muscles stiff, willpower thin. My mind is inventing new reasons to quit. But each morning I showed up anyway. The struggle loosened its grip just a little. The resistance didn't disappear, but small victories emerged. My breathing is steadier. My mood is lighter. My mind is less clouded by stress. I wasn't escaping my thoughts anymore. I was moving through them. By the 4th day, something unexpected happened. I woke up looking forward to movement instead of dreading it. One crisp morning, jogging alone, I felt a clarity I hadn't known in years. Just me, an empty road, and the steady rhythm of my breath. That moment shifted everything. I realized exercise was never just about burning calories or chasing a better body. It was about reclaiming time for myself, reconnecting with my body, and releasing tension I didn't even know I was carrying. Trying yoga deepened that realization. What started as skepticism turned into respect. Respect for breath, for limits, for presence. The effort itself became a form of self-care. Inside the sweat and strain, there was calm, and slowly that calm followed me into the rest of my day. The physical changes came gradually: better posture, more energy, a steady confidence that stayed with me long after the workout ended. But the real transformation was mental. Movement became my daily reset. I stopped seeing exercise as a chore and started seeing it as proof. Proof that I could break the cycle of avoidance. Proof that I could take control of how I felt. The world could wait. This time was mine, and showing up for myself changed everything. Try this. For the next week, move your body every day. No perfection, no extremes. Walk, stretch, dance, cycle. Choose a movement that feels accessible, not impressive. Notice the excuses when they appear. Don't argue with them. Act anyway. Pay attention to how your mood, focus, and confidence shift throughout the day. Ask yourself, how would my life change if movement became a non-negotiable act of self-respect? At Stoic Daily, we believe true strength is built through small, consistent acts. Drop "I move for my mind" in the comments. What form of movement will you commit to this week? 3. Journal for clarity, not perfection. I always thought journaling was for people with too much time or those obsessed with self-analysis. Honestly, it felt pointless until I committed to just one honest week. The first night, the blank page felt like standing at the edge of a quiet lake at midnight. Still, slightly unsettling, unsure of what might surface. My thoughts scattered like leaves in the wind, refusing to settle. But as I began to write down the day's small moments, the wins, the annoyances, what made me grateful, what left me anxious, something subtle started to shift. Each entry, even when awkward, felt like tossing pebbles into that silent water. Ripples spread, the mental fog thinned. Some nights I managed only a few words, like skipping stones across the surface. Other nights the words poured out as if opening a window and finally letting stale air move again. At first, I was afraid of seeing my own mess reflected at me, but as the days passed, fear softened into familiarity. I began to recognize patterns, what triggered my stress, what actually brought me peace, where I was pouring energy into storms that were never mine to fight. The turning point came one night after a particularly hard day at work. By placing every frustration onto the page, it felt like draining a storm cloud. The weight lifted, the sky cleared. That simple act of honesty calmed my mind and returned a sense of control I hadn't felt in weeks. Tracking even the smallest wins and moments of gratitude, like stringing beads onto a necklace, slowly shifted my focus from what was missing to what was already there. A stranger's kindness written in ink became a quiet lantern in the dark, reminding me to carry the light forward. Journaling became my private dock, a place to tie up my thoughts, safe from the waves no matter how rough life felt. It didn't just help me process emotion, it sharpened self-awareness. Over time, my moods grew less reactive, my inner voice softened, my nights became quieter. The page became my private therapist. No filter, no performance, no need to impress, just truth, release, and understanding. Try this. For the next week, before bed, open a notebook and write without editing. Don't chase insight. Don't search for perfect words. Start with what happened, how you felt, or one thing you're grateful for. Even a few honest lines begin to reveal patterns, clear mental noise, and pull you gently from worry into clarity. Ask yourself, what might change if I stopped running from my thoughts and finally let them speak? At Stoic Daily, we believe growth begins when you face yourself on the page. Drop "I journal for clarity" in the comments. What's one truth you're ready to write tonight? 4. Eat with intention, taste your life. For most of my life, eating was an autopilot process. Meals rushed, mind scattered. A phone was glowing beside my plate. I barely noticed the taste, let alone my body's signals. Like many people, I used to rush through meals in front of a screen, never fully present. When I committed to mindful eating for just 1 week, it felt like stepping into unfamiliar territory. The first meal was awkward, almost exposed, with no background noise, no distraction, just the quiet company of my own thoughts and the simple act of chewing. Slowing down felt unnatural at first, like unlearning a habit that had been reinforced for years. But as I breathed, set down my fork and paid attention, food began to come alive. Flavors sharpened, textures stood out. It felt as if someone had turned up the contrast on my experience. I noticed the snap of fresh greens, the sweetness in fruit, and the creaminess of oats. Details I had rushed past without realizing. Setting the table, taking a breath before eating, and removing distractions slowly became a ritual. Not rigid, just intentional. A small pause that grounded me in the middle of busy days. With practice, another realization surfaced. My hunger wasn't always physical. Sometimes it was emotional. Sometimes it was just a need to stop, to soothe stress or to regain control after a long day. One evening, exhausted, I reached for dessert out of habit. For the first time, I paused. I asked myself what I actually needed. I chose a cup of tea instead. That moment was small, but it felt significant, a quiet act of self-respect instead of automatic indulgence. Over time, I learned which foods left me energized and clear, and which ones made me sluggish and heavy. Mindful eating became an anchor, a daily check-in, a way to nourish rather than numb. Gradually, meals transformed from a mindless routine into a ritual of gratitude. Each plate became a reminder to slow down, to respect my body, and to stay present. This shift didn't just change how I ate, it changed how I related to my body and my emotions. Try this. For the next week, eat just one meal a day without distractions. Sit down, breathe, pay attention to each bite, the flavor, the texture, even the sound of chewing. Notice how different it feels to eat slowly, to listen to your body instead of overriding it. Ask yourself, what am I really hungry for right now? You may discover that what you crave isn't food, but rest, calm, or a moment of self-respect. At Stoic Daily, we believe that mindful eating is a form of self-respect in action. Drop "I eat with intention" in the comments. What's one meal you'll fully savor this week? 5. Limit screen time. Reclaim your life. Too much screen time isn't just a digital problem, it's a quiet thief, slowly draining focus, energy, and even sleep. For years, I lived with a phone glued to my hand, filling every gap with mindless scrolling, binge-watching, and late-night news. It became my default escape, a glowing portal I used to avoid discomfort, boredom, or silence. When I first set a daily cap of 1 hour of non-work screen time, I was shocked by how hard it felt. Every idle moment triggered the old reflex. My hand reached for the device before my mind even noticed. The urge was strong, the resistance was real. But staying with it day after day, something began to change. My days started to stretch wider, like windows opening after a long winter. Time reappeared. At first, that space felt uncomfortable. Restlessness crept in, even a hint of loneliness. But as the noise faded, I started rediscovering parts of myself I had misplaced. Old books waiting to be opened, sketches half forgotten, experiments in the kitchen, evenings that once disappeared into a blue haze slowly turned into walks outside, where I felt the air, heard my thoughts, and reconnected with real life. My creativity returned quietly. My mind cleared like fog lifting at dawn. The most striking change showed up at night. By breaking the habit of falling asleep to endless scrolling, I built a new rhythm. Reading, gentle stretching, a few quiet reflections on the day. I woke up rested. My energy lasted longer. Mornings no longer carried the dull weight of digital fatigue. Without the constant flood of news and social feeds, my anxiety softened. I became more present in conversations, more attentive with friends and family. Relationships deepened. I noticed details again, sunlight shifting across a room, the calm joy of simply being, things I had scrolled past for years. There were setbacks. Some nights, the phone called louder than my best intentions. But each time I slipped, I reminded myself of what these boundaries were giving me. Peace of mind, better sleep, real connection, a life that felt fuller than any feed could offer. Limiting screen time wasn't about restriction. It was about reclaiming attention and choosing where my life actually happened. Try this. For 1 week, set a strict daily cap on non-essential screen time, no more than 1 hour. No negotiations. Notice every urge to check your phone. Don't fight it, redirect it, step outside. Call someone you've been meaning to, read a few pages, create something imperfect. 30 minutes before bed. Ban all screens completely. Track how your sleep, mood, and focus shift. Ask yourself, what beauty do I keep missing when my attention lives behind a screen? At Stoic Daily, we believe your time deserves respect, not distraction. Drop "I reclaim my time" in the comments. What will you choose instead of scrolling this week? Small habits, big change. That brings us to the end of this journey through 5 habits that changed my life in just 1 week. They are simple actions, but their impact runs deeper than it first appears. The real power wasn't only in doing these habits, but in committing to them day by day and sharing the process with you. If I could break old cycles and rediscover clarity, energy, and genuine connection, then this kind of change is possible for you too. Don't chase perfection. Focus on progress. Choose just one habit, however small it may seem, and allow it to transform your days. Small changes create momentum, and over time, that momentum doesn't just reshape your schedule, it reshapes who you become. Every meaningful legacy begins with a single action, not with waiting for the perfect moment to arrive. I want to hear from you. Which of these 5 habits will you try first? Which part of your day feels most ready for change? Share your stories, wins, and struggles below. Your honesty is what turns this from content into a community. If this journey brought you value, remember to subscribe, like, and turn on notifications for more Stoic daily reflections. Share this with someone ready to change their life in a grounded, sustainable way. Let's keep building habits that lead to real results, one day at a time. At Stoic Philosophy Daily, we believe small changes create powerful lives. Drop "I choose growth" in the comments. Until next time, keep evolving and let every small habit become a solid building block in your story.
If you're seeking more, discover the full path on my channel, Stoic Philosophy Daily.